Go. All right, call to order this community forum for the Village of Ashcroft for Monday, the 26th of April. Welcome. Thank you to everyone out there who is watching. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to come this afternoon to this first of two meetings about the Village of Ashcroft. Today is specifically going to be about the 2021 budget and upcoming projects. That's going to be handled by CFO Yogi Bala. On our meeting on May the 10th at 4:30, there will be a second budget meeting, which will be a presentation of the budget and 5-year financial plan. So please feel free to drop back in for that one on May the 10th. Now, there will be a question and comment session at the end of the presentation. We would ask that everyone who has questions or comments, please type them in on Facebook. Jessica Clement of the Hub Online Network is going to be coordinating that for us and reading out the questions as they come in. Please put your name and address in the question, and if we get multiple questions on the same topic, we're just going to ask the question and answer it once. So, without further ado, I will turn this presentation over to our Chief Financial Officer, Yogi Bala.
Good evening. Thank you for being with us, and thank you, Hub, for letting us stream this live. So this is the community forum. Like the mayor mentioned, it's one of two meetings. This is your last opportunity to get feedback for projects before the final meeting, which by that time the budget is finalized and it's going for statutory presentation. So this is the last opportunity to get feedback into our budget. So let's get started. So we've been working away despite COVID. We've continued our project and the village has been busy. As you can see, the water treatment plant, the separators and intake, our projects are happening. The intake project is just winding down. We have the intake built. The next thing starting up in the next few days is the separators, which will allow us to separate the sand and the non-organic matter from the river. As you can probably see, the river got quite dirty in the last few weeks, and we had turbidity up to 50. That causes issues in our new water treatment plant. We didn't used to have that much turbidity in the river, so we've added on this project to allow us to operate for a long time sustainably. So that is moving ahead. The other project moving ahead is the sewage lift station, and that will start up soon. We're through the initial signing of the contracts. The legacy park project is in full swing, actually winding down. We've pretty much finished, and just cleaning up the park for the new season. Hopefully we can have a season this year with the numbers changing, or hopefully we are still allowed to continue, but we've put in some additional infrastructure there. The hot tub that one was a little bit delayed just because I think driven by COVID and getting engineers and contractors to our local area, but that has started to move. We're currently looking at quotes to remove the concrete around, as well as looking at the engineers is finalizing the design. It unfortunately won't be in for this season, but we're hoping to get it in by next season. We've been able to extend the grant to cover into the next year. So the Brian is working hard to make it move forward, and it's taken a fair bit of work to get it going. Fire department training has been going on strong. EV charging stations will be coming up both in the Heritage Park, and we have an extra station we got our hands on, which would go on close to the village. So we're just finalizing those so we can get moving with that. Trails master plan, the surveys are out. Thank you very much for the responses. That helps, and we've been forwarding all the responses to the trail planners. This year also we have allocated the budget to get a new sweeper in place. Our current sweeper is past its life, actually way past its life. It's time to look out at a new sweeper, and we've been looking for it, and we budgeted things. Economic development, this is a annual process. We do business facade and Love Ashcroft economic development programs, and those continue. We do have economic development budget, a development officer who works at the village under contract and keeps things moving. I think it's important to continue those activities despite the challenges we faced, so that we can recover from this. Rainbow Crosswalk is planned for this year as well. We have community garden plans and a grant request out for it. So so hopefully that can proceed as well. We also want to, in the process with the working group, doing a heritage park evaluation, just to see what can improve and set up a plan to deal with different items which we'd like to upgrade in the park. It's a well-used park, and council wish to upgrade it and look at it. AIB water collaboration is in discussion. We are hoping to bring them into our system and get that moving forward in the next while. The other project which is out for applications out for a grant is the North Ashcroft drainage. We are hoping to get the grant. It's another few weeks before we have an answer. If not, we'll still be proceeding with it because of just risk mitigation in North Ashcroft. It's an important topic. Emergency plan updates and alert system. The Voyant system has been implemented. We are hoping people continue to enroll. We've had some people enroll. We'd like as much enrollment as possible. So the alerts go out to people as they use it, so it gets used well. And there's a working group, and we're working through different parts of, including updating our emergency plan, which has been a while since it was updated, and different parts of it which came up after the fires. So the work is going on there. Intercommunity bylaw officer is in the works, just about in place. So soon enough you'll see a bylaw officer, and the process will start. So asset management collaborative, we were able to secure some funding for that, moving our own plan forward. This is an ongoing thing, fair bit of work, pulling a lot of things together, and also working with Cache Creek to move their asset management forward as well. Last but not least is the North Ashcroft Reservoir. There's a number of steps which we need to complete there, including doing something with the land it was built on, and that needs to come under the village, as well as we need to work with the ALR folks to get it out of the ALR. I couldn't think of the acronym for a moment, ALC, and get that. So that's a process, and we're working on that. This is not an all-inclusive list of projects. As you can probably tell, we're busy, which is good, but lots of things moving alongside this. Okay, that's a list of projects. Please keep this in mind, and hopefully you're making notes to get back to us and give feedback to council about going forward for the next year or the years after. Okay, we implemented something we're quite proud of, the fairly innovative way to deal with some of our projects, and just to enhance the communication between ourselves, council, and as required, bringing in community to participate as well. This is working out really well. I think the communication has improved. I definitely feel I'm interacting a lot more with council and members of council, and with the public to move things forward. And that includes these 8 topics. It started off, didn't we say when we started off this was going to be 5 and no more?
Yes.
So it's now 8, and I put 2 in one on number 2. So water to AIB we're dealing with that. North Ashcroft Reservoir and asset management, that's a group. The North Ashcroft Reservoir group didn't know they were dealing with asset management till today. But
No, thank you.
the emergency plan group, we've had some couple of really good meetings and good feedback. That's nice to see. The trails plan, we met to just set up the scope, and now it's up to, the surveys have gone out, and those are being returned and collated, and they're being sent to the planner. So that's moving ahead. North Ashcroft and drainage and runoff, we've discussed the initial meeting, and we're waiting to hear what the result of our application is. And hopefully we can get the funding to move forward with that. Community garden and a heritage park together on one group, and I'm not in that group, but discussions, they've met a few times and discussions continue. I think there's been a walk through the park as well, and that seems to be moving quite well. Volunteer fire department, there's a few items we needed to work on that to enhance and to encourage volunteer firefighters, and that has been going quite well, and been moving forward, right from bylaws, scope, constitution, department resources, a number of things are being discussed. Economic development meets on a regular basis as well with the economic development contractor, and that gets discussed as well and on task. Okay, alongside all this work, we do face a number of cost pressures, and a lot of things I like showing this because a lot of things we don't control as much as we would like to, and because we are quite heavy on our infrastructure, the impact of gas is quite big on our bottom line. Like, that cost can really affect us, so as well as the hydro cost, and both of those have gone up quite a bit. Not only the delivery storage, the carbon tax on the natural gas is pretty significant, and if you get a opportunity, have a look at your bill and compare that to your commodity charge. It is nearly getting as much as what the commodity costs, and it increases and is going to continue to increase. So just from a financial perspective, not an environmental perspective, I understand the reasoning behind it for the environmental side of things, but in terms of our cost pressures, it is costing us significantly more. There is a street lighting increase which can have about a 14K potential impact on us. We have filed our responses with the BC Utility Commission to express to them how this affects us, and that's in that what is the word, Brian, they use for the intervener. We have intervener status on that, so we hope that has some impact, and we are not faced with as much of an increase. Can be 14K plus increase, I should say there. Solid waste, which is a euphemism for garbage, is a challenge for us. We pay the TNRD to provide their services, about 120,000. It varies, and that is run off your property taxes, so it varies with your property values as compared to the rest of the region. We also pay tipping fees in the range of 50,000 this year, which have increased a fair bit. We used to get a fair bit of landfill revenue. We had a revenue sharing agreement for the landfill. That is starting up again, but at least the loss from that is 20,000. But despite that, we're continuing our spring cleanups and trying to keep offering the same level of service to the village. And there are no plans of ending that for now, and the spring cleanup continues. Water consumption, this is another area I wanted to highlight. our consumption shot up significantly, 15% last year compared to the year before. And our electricity bill went up 120,000 because of it. So kind of, way to put it, which might stick in your mind, is that a 1% increase is a $10,000 increase for us in costs. So we need to look at perhaps implementing a little bit of conservation measures and keeping on track to be conscious of our consumption and moving forward in that way. So we'll be taking some steps this year to bring forward, getting the community more aware of what it means to us. Water treatment is expensive, and energy immediately increases as we increase our energy bills go up by quite a bit. The other thing we dealt with, which was dealt with after quite a bit of a scramble at the beginning of the year, our insurance bill came quite a bit higher, so we had to secure a better insurance. We were fortunate to get in touch with the Municipal Insurance Association, and they were able to offer us a significant saving on our insurance. So that was dealt with, but it's a cost pressure we faced over a number of years. But this year we were able to get it done under a pretty intense time crunch to get it all in place at the beginning of the year. Okay, how does the ranking process work? So we meet multiple times, both staff and council, and we prioritize things. So there's a list of priorities which comes. And the community asks for a lot of things, right? And that goes into a list. That list is then prioritized into categories which critical, high priority, or somewhat lower priority. And that's done because we've got a limited budget, and critical are the items we'll be needing to deal with in the current year, and high priorities are important items, and then there are priorities which are lower than that. The village as an entity has some primary functions. That is, starting in my mind, it goes from providing clean and safe drinking water, providing sewage and garbage services, making sure we've got protection, fire protection and other protection, and looking after the roads. Everything else the municipality does is secondary in the way we were set up to that goal, but I'm not saying it's secondary in council priorities, but those are the primary functions of municipal government. But we do a lot of other things. We spend quite a bit on recreation and on our culture. We provide other services which the community really values, but I like putting that in the perspective, in that lens, how things go. So once we get this list, council is asked to prioritize this list, and that's how we come up with the projects you saw a couple of pages ago, based on the critical priorities for the current year. So it just keeps a rolling set of projects going, and it's really important because this promotes discipline and promotes planning. So when requests come in, we don't just say we'll drop everything else and do that. It has to be a combined decision of council before we move forward. Certain critical items might show up, but again, that's the process how municipal governance works, and it helps us keep things balanced, because there's a certain amount, a pot which can go to different projects. If things are added beyond that pot, then you end up increasing taxes. There's no excess money anywhere. That's where it has to come from. So that's where the balancing act happens. Council has made this a priority of the year. We increase taxes slowly, like we keep it very stable 2.5% a year. Last year there was no increase because of COVID. This year we are not doing a 5%, we are doing a 2.5% increase, and that is a pot of money to try and use as well as we can and as efficiently as we can. So you've seen some of the critical works are scheduled, which are scheduled for this year. The momentum, so it's an ongoing thing. So a lot of projects, the bigger ones, will roll into the next year. So the momentum for 2021 is ongoing, and then it'll continue into 2022. This year, in terms of dollar figures, we've got about 3.5 million in projects just in that list. Okay, taxes payable. I'll cover this also in the next presentation. So what happens is it's based on assessment, then there's a tax rate, and then there's a taxes payable. So A is the assessment, B is the tax rate, and C is the taxes payable which the village collects. When we talk about an increase, we talk about increasing C by 2.5%. So if your assessment has shot up, your tax rate will go down so that you only have a 2.5% increase. It's not such that, a lot of times there's a misunderstanding that if my assessment went up by 100,000, my taxes will go up by, multiple times. It's not how it works. It balances out on the tax rate, and the final taxes payable, that's what we plan to increase by 2.5%. So I jumped forward, and the taxes are increasing by 2.5%. Our average single family assessment this year went up by $10,000 to $254,583. The average single family tax increase is $14.50. And what is the average? It's taking all the single family units, taking the increase, dividing it by the total number of units, the actual average. Average residential increase and residential class, and this can get more complex as you get into details, but it includes single strata, farm properties, vacant properties, etc. That went up by $23 overall. Okay, the other thing which I think it should be recognized is that we are like the collectors for other agencies. Of the taxes we bill out, we only keep about 50% of them. The rest goes to different entities. Some goes to TNRD, some goes to the school, some goes to the police, some goes to BC, British Columbia Assessment Authority for their operations, and lastly we pay a little bit to the Municipal Finance Authority. The village financial position. Okay, we've done well despite our challenges around, despite the economy, despite everything else. We've been able to get free of debt, and our both water loan as well as the fire truck debt has been completely paid out. Book value of our assets, which is based on the accounting original cost, is about 30 million. The replacement value, if we had to go and replace everything, is over 63 million. So it's more than 2 times. So that's what inflation does to assets. So the cost of actually putting infrastructure keeps going up, right? And that is our replacement value. Village has about 4 million in reserves. Most of those, 75%, are restricted. By meaning restricted, they can only be allocated water reserve to water, certain capital reserves to certain capital items. Given the size of our assets, this is not a large reserve. Having 4 million over 63 million, even though we are in a better position than a lot of municipalities, and over the last few years, we've been slowly building it while paying off our debts, it's still not a large reserve. I mean, anybody can recognize that. That's as a percentage basis, it's not huge. So this will we have a plan. We have a very detailed asset management plan, and over time we'll continue to build this, and hopefully continue to improve in our financial capability. There's been a fair bit of work, and work continues on asset management, which gives us a better handle on location, condition, risk, and value. And one item which might be hidden, it lets us plan better and actually utilize our assets better, which means that we don't buy new assets too early or we retire assets. So it really helps us manage things overall better and keep track of things. And we can target repairs and preventative repairs sometimes better, which helps having forced to replace things. That's the end of the presentation, short and sweet. Questions, please.
All right, thank you very much, CFO Bala. So before we get into the questions and comments that have come in tonight, there were a number of questions asked on Facebook over the weekend on a thread that I was involved with. And I will be getting back to the people individually in case they're not watching tonight. But for everyone, because these might be questions that other people have, I'm going to go through quickly the questions and the answers. Before I get to that, though, I just want to talk for a moment about grants. That slide at the beginning that you showed, CFO Bala, had 18 different projects on it. And I want to note that of those 18 projects, we've received 12 grants totaling $2.63 million. And 2 more grants have been applied for, and we're waiting to hear about that. And so just about grants, we hear a lot about grants. Why don't you go for more grants? And I have to say, we have a fantastic and extremely diligent staff who are constantly on the lookout for grant opportunities. They know exactly what projects we want to embark on. So when they see a grant that fits a project that we have on our wish list, they immediately jump on it. They are very, very good about following up, about making the applications. The grant applications are exceedingly complicated. They take a lot of time and effort and backup documents to prepare. So they are fantastic at doing that, and you can tell how good they are by our success rate in actually getting the grants that we apply for. But once we get the grant, it is not as simple as someone handing us a check and saying, here's your grant, have a good project. At every stage of that project, there has to be documentation, there has to be tracking and recording and reporting back to the grant body to tell them at what stage the project is at, how the money is being spent, what it's being spent on. So that continues for the life of the project. It is extremely time-consuming and onerous. And then once the project is completed, some grant bodies require you to report out every year for 3 to 5 years on the outcomes of the project. Did you meet your targets? Is it accomplishing what you sent out to accomplish? So grants are wonderful. We could not do what we do, a lot of what we do, without getting grants. But to say that we got a grant for a project and it's going to cost us nothing, it costs us a lot in staff time and effort. And I just want to say again how great our staff is at getting grants, how diligent they are. And thank you so much, because a lot of the projects on that list would not be there without the work of staff to get the grants that made them possible. So, having said that, some of the questions that came in over the weekend on Facebook, we had a couple of people ask us about the $5,000 that we received from the production company who did Twilight Zone episode that was allocated for shade sales at the pool. So these shade sales were suggested as a solution for shade at the pool, of which there is not a lot. However, staff had discussions with pool staff and public works and are now looking at retractable awnings instead. Shade sails are very costly. They pose a liability risk of people climbing on them when the pool is closed. Communities in Bloom is actually the organization that had the initial vision of the shade sails, and they're now partnering with the village towards the installation of retractable awnings. So that project is ongoing, and it's on the Public Works list of priorities. CFO Bala has dealt with where we are with the hot tub installation. That was another question. Engineers have been contracted. They're working on the design phase, and demolition contractors are quoting the project. Someone asked, will there be any paving/patching of village roads this year? They specifically referenced the roads downtown. The answer to that is yes. We're expecting to get started this month, and we're going to be beginning on Railway Avenue at the cemetery and moving towards town approximately 300 feet. There will be other patching considered later this summer, but that will be dependent on staffing availability and budget. Someone asked about plans for the signs on Grad Hill. They are not planned at this time to do any restoration or repair work on them. This is not a village project. It was always done by the grad classes, and the signs are not on village property. Two residents of Ash Street mentioned people speeding on Ash, asked for more or better signage, possibly traffic calming measures such as speed bumps. That road is a 30-kilometer zone. This is also a village concern. It's going to be addressed as more research is completed. A report will be brought to council, and we will be considering a number of different measures for traffic calming on Ash. A resident of Ash also complained about people ignoring not stopping at the stop sign. As you come down the hill on Hill Street, you've got the hub on your left and you've got Ash Street on your right, people rolling right through the stop sign there. So we can ask the RCMP to monitor that area for speeding, non-compliance, and people not stopping. And finally, a resident of Tingley Street complained about the volume of traffic, commercial traffic on Tingley. Tingley, the speed limit was reduced to 30 kilometers an hour, and it was deemed to be a one-way road. But since then, the road has returned to its regular traffic. Signage has stayed at 30 kilometers an hour. That is the speed limit on Tingley. Trucks are permitted on Tingley. The road should be 50 kilometers, but we've kept it at 30. So those were the public questions that we had, and now if we have had any questions come in from the public, we have time to address them now.
We do have a few questions. They are all from Gloria Mertens, who lives on Rattlesnake Road. Projects Trail Master Plan. Who is the engaged planner? Was this job posted? Will the names on the petitions submitted in 2013 and 2019, over 200, asking for a river pathway on Evans Road, be given to the planner and weighted accordingly?
Trails. All right. I do not know the answers to those questions, so someone will have to get back to Ms. Mertens with the answers.
For the working group, how is membership determined? I appreciate that things are getting done more efficiently, but I am a bit concerned that this is a creative way to get around the requirements of the Community Charter and Local Government Act. The public seems to be handpicked rather than allowed to participate by seeing the process and providing oversight to the process.
The working groups are on a case-by-case basis. It is up to each individual working group to decide who they will engage from the public and how that will happen. The working groups are still in their very early stages. Some of them have only met once. As they go on, the working groups will determine whether there will be people from outside invited, and the process is likely to vary from working group to working group.
And last one from her, cost pressures. There are a lot of increasing costs and they keep going up. Water consumption should be treated like any utility on a user pay basis. The more you use, the more you pay. Urban Systems in the Water Master Plan had meters put in by this year, 2021, for everyone, but this advice was ignored. When will meters finally be considered? This would not be a popular decision, and I am wondering if it will be made after the next election. Note that all areas in the TNRD that have water treatment systems, as well as most progressive municipalities, have water consumption meters. Education can only go so far.
Decisions are not made with an eye to an election or timing of that sort. Decisions are made when it is the best time to make that decision. When the Water Master Plan was first developed, that was going on for a decade ago now. So I was not on council at the time. I do not know what the thinking was of setting a 2021 date. Water meters are not mandatory in the province. The TNRD has moved to water systems or water meters for the 11 water systems that the TNRD administers. Those water systems have as few as 14 people on each system. So we are talking a very small number of water meters throughout the TNRD. They were fortunate enough to get a full grant of 3.2 million. That was 2 or 3 years ago now. So water meters are very expensive. There is a fair degree of non-compliance in terms of people not wanting them either on their property or in their house. We prefer to go the education route for the time being because we have so many other projects on. In part, water meters simply are not something that we can do at this time. It is the view of this council and staff that education is by far the most powerful tool we have to ensure compliance and ensure that people are aware of the water that they're consuming and the cost to the village and ultimately to themselves for that cost. So we are hiring a summer student this summer, and one of that summer student's main priorities for the time that they are here will be to advocate for water compliance and education of members of the public, and we're hoping that we can enlist other community groups as well. CFO Bala.
Your Worship, just to respond with the financial implication of meters, we do constantly listen to the community, and as council does, water meters are costly, and most of the community has just moved after a 5-year pattern increase in utility rates to make water self-sustaining. There is not much appetite to increase costs, and the cost would go up significantly if everybody was. It's a whole infrastructure you're putting in. Even if you get a full 100% grant to get the initial meter in place, the monitoring is costly, the tracking is costly. You need additional people to account for it and bill for it. And if we can get any savings through voluntary compliance and voluntary awareness of water, and we've been fairly successful in the past with it, it is the best avenue, in our opinion, to move forward. Yes, a lot of municipalities have bit the bullet and moved forward with water meters. What I hear from the village is that they rather not pay significantly more for water.
Thank you. And thank you, CFO Bala, for bringing that up about the increase in the water and sewer rates, one of which the water ended last year, sewer rates, this is the final year of increases. 5 years ago, the village was facing a very serious deficit with both our water and sewer funds in that we were not bringing up in nearly enough to make those systems self-sustaining. They're not intended to make money for the village, but they need to support themselves. And thanks to, in large part, the sound fiscal management of CFO Bala, we are now in the position where those two funds are self-sustaining. It has been a long road, and it has been somewhat painful for some people. I'm the first to acknowledge that. And so, as you pointed out, to now go to water meters on top of that, we would prefer to educate and bring people into compliance with their water usage voluntarily and through education. Any more questions? Okay. Well, if anyone out there is watching in Facebook virtual land, we'll just take a 2-minute break or a couple of minute break. And if you have any last questions or comments, please feel free. And I will just remind everyone again, on our Monday, May the 10th at 4:30, there will be another live stream. Thank you to the Hub Online Network for doing this, with the presentation of the final budget and 5-year financial plan. And we will once again welcome your questions and comments. So we'll take a brief pause and be back with you in a couple of, Councillor Toohey.
Yep, just before we go for a pause, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. And one was the working groups. Yes, we're new at it, and we've only had 1 or 2 meetings. But one of the benefits of those working groups, as well as getting feedback from the community, is that we will have information that we can put on the shelf that will be accessible by staff, so that if there is something that we have on our wish list, the staff will be able to already know that that's something we want and look at it and look for a grant. Or if they hear of something and they know that we have that idea for a project, they know it's there and we've already discussed it. So I think that's kind of important, just so people also don't think that we are just looking for grants to look for money. That's not our purpose. Our purpose is to make improvements in the village and to have ideas ahead of time and then look for the grants after that. So I thought those were just some important points to make.
Thank you. And just one last point about grants. I was talking a couple of years back to someone who's very familiar with the grant process, from the receiving the grant application end. And he made the point about people, municipalities that are grant chasers. And he said the people who are reviewing the applications get very good at spotting whether a grant application is actually for something that the municipality needs and has put thought into, or whether it's just an application for the sake of sending off an application. It's just something that we want and we haven't really thought about it. So our approach is, do we have something that we need, that we have identified, we've done a study on, and that's where staff are so good at knowing exactly what we have on the wish list, on the back burner, and finding the grants that we actually need. And again, that gives you a much better success rate when it comes to applying. If the grant body sees that this is a genuine need and there's obviously been thought and consideration, you are more likely to succeed with your grants. So we'll take a break and be back in a couple of minutes. I don't think I've received anything. Good. Go ahead. All right, well, apparently there are no more questions or comments, so I'd like to thank everyone out there watching, whether you're watching live or whether you catch up with us later in your own time. Again, don't forget about the meeting 4:30 on Monday, May the 10th, same place for the final budget presentation of the year and a look at the 5-year financial plan. Thank you very much to staff, and thank you very much to CFO Bella for your wonderful presentation, and look forward to another busy and productive year for the Village of Ashcroft.